Now, folks, in the event of a government shutdown, most Americans will notice the disruption in one way or another. Many national parks will likely shut down as well, while mortgage and other applications could be delayed by the IRS if they stop verifying income and the Social Security numbers. But the last shutdown from December 2018 to January 25th, 2019 was a partial closure since Congress has already enacted 5 of the appropriation bills. Now, it was a record-setting 35 days and reduced economic growth in the final 3 months of the year by about $3 billion, and each federal agency would have its own shutdown plan, which is coordinated by the Office of Management and Budget. These efforts would determine the government activities and would stop until an agreement between Democrats and Republicans is finally renewed. Folks, we got 10 news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. Continue watching this video because we have a ton of information about this. First of all, the new fourth stimulus check is here, and thanks to new budget surpluses, there are new ways for households to receive extra financial relief in their states and cities. Thousands of checks are getting printed and mailed out every day in many states, and you may be eligible to claim. Lawmakers in several states must decide on how to deal with this. Thanks to a bill that passed during the year, those who reside in New Mexico who previously filed taxes could get up to $1,000 in rebates, and during a press conference, officials estimated more than 935,000 tax filers are expected to be eligible for a rebate. In the week since the last round of tax rebate checks went out, thousands of Mexico residents have been calling the state tax department. Now, the cabinet secretary for the state's taxation and Department of Revenue said that in a recent week, we received about 8,000 phone calls in one day. Now, according to the officials, if you're getting a refund by direct deposit, you should have it by now, as most people have. And if your banking information changed between now and when you filed your state income check, well, you get a paper check instead. They also print and mail about 70,000 paper checks per day. If they haven't received a check, they can expect it by mid-July. And the department even printed and mailed out more than 280,000 paper checks for a total of 450,000 checks overall. Now, if a wrong address or a closed bank account on file prevents the Postal Service from reaching you, state officials have said that the payment would then be returned to them, and they would hold on to that payment until contented. Alabama has also recently passed a law that grants a one-time rebate to the taxpayers, because according to representatives, eligible taxpayers who submitted their tax returns on or before October will either receive direct deposit or a check instead. Individuals classified as singled or married and filing separately will receive a $150 check, and the married couples as well could get up to $300. The rebate checks will be mailed out after November 30th if a taxpayer's bank account is linked to the tax return. And this will receive an electronic deposit for the rebate, and the checks will be sent out later this year too. Officials say that around Christmas it is in time for the shopping, but some individuals will not be eligible for the rebate, including those claimed as dependents by another taxpayer for federal or Alabama income tax purposes. Even the Michigan lawmakers are making huge changes on this. The lawmakers have described budgets as a list of their values, and for the first time in 4 decades, Democrats have gotten near total control for funding of their values. It's because they hold the governor's office and a majority in the House and Senate. The roughly 1,100-page budget was approved by conference committees this week, and the total budget was around.
Because of this new economy, we don't need everyone to have a 4-year degree. It's great if you can get one, and we're trying to make it easier for you to get one. But you don't need it to get a good-paying job anymore. Think of this. How many of you remember going back to high school and they had shop class, and they had classes where people could learn if they were interested in working with their hands? They don't have them very much anymore, anywhere around the country. Well, my wife teaches at a community college, full-time still. She has an expression. She said, any country that outcompetes us, that out-educates us, that's why we're investing significantly in education. And we're targeting free community college. We're also fighting to make child care more affordable, because we know one benefit is that it opens up significant opportunities for parents to be able to go back and join the workforce. We're also making it easier to empower workers by making it easier to join a union. As I said, I promise.
With Chuck Schumer over a budget reconciliation bill, warning that it needs to be scrubbed much better after new reports showed that inflation hit 9.1% in June. Manchin told reporters he can only agree to the prescription reform, which has already been sent to the Senate Parliamentarian's office and has the support of all 50 members of the Democratic caucus. He said the deficit reduction is going to be 50% of the new revenue gained from prescription savings and tax reforms, such as a 8.3% tax on wealthy individuals and couples who earn more than $400,000 or $500,000 from past-due businesses. He said the latest inflation report showing prices have increased by 9.1% compared to over a year ago means that people are going to have to slow down and proceed more cautiously on putting together the budget. But Manchin did not rule out including a provision to continue subsidies of health insurance plans provided under the Healthcare Affordable Care Act, explained that whether he could agree to extend subsidies would depend on how they are drafted and paid for. Manchin said it depends on if we can look at things and find a pathway forward that is not inflammatory. The West Virginia senator also emphasized that he's more inclined to keep the spending in the bill as modest as possible to avoid further stimulating an overheated economy. Manchin also said there's been no talk of lifting the cap on the state and local tax deduction, something that two Democrats from the Northeast, Josh Gottheimer and Thomas Suzy, are demanding. Even though Manchin has expressed his opposition to the bill, Democrats are still pushing for the bill to be passed. Another 4 U.S. states can be added to the list of those who are providing their residents with much needed financial boost as inflation hikes prices for the majority of products. As for Chicago, those who qualify for universal basic income payments received their first check earlier this week, as Mayor Lightfoot announced that the checks were sent out to more than 3,500 households.
Feeling the effects of rising costs. As these costs continue to put pressure on the pockets of America's working families, House Democrats are working tirelessly to provide relief. When gas prices soared earlier this year, House Democrats took action to fight price gouging at the pump. House Democrats took action to lower insulin costs and ensure that life-saving prescriptions do not send families into bankruptcy. As food prices rose, House Democrats took action to reduce prices for American farmers and lower prices for families in the grocery aisles. And our work is far from over. We understand that prices are too high and Americans are struggling to make ends meet. Fighting inflation and lowering costs for families remains our top priority. Republicans have tried to obstruct bills to cut costs to earn political points at the expense of hard-working American families. It's time to put people before politics. House Democrats are working for America's working families, and it's time my Republican colleagues do the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I can yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.